So today I have with me a Year 4 student named Natalie. And Natalie, we're going to work on some science today. So we're going to work on a chemistry concept. And the chemistry concept we're going to look at concerns objects. And we're going to look at that different objects have a range of materials which made out different properties. And those properties determine the way that we use them in everyday life. But before we begin, can I welcome you to a glass of water at all?
Yes, please.
Sure thing. Oh, what the? The water's gone right through this cup. And why do you think that might be, Natalie?
Because it got wet.
And why do you think it got wet?
Too soft.
Too soft, exactly. So softness is a property of paper. So we could say that the object is a cup or a makeshift cup. And the material that this cup is made out of is paper. And one property of paper is softness. And we could also say it's very absorbent. And because it's absorbent, it means water passes through it very easily, so it's not very good to make a cup out of. So better things to make a cup out of would be glass or plastic. So as you can see from that, the materials that things are made out of and the properties they have determine how we use them. So before we go on, what's your understanding of the word material, Natalie?
Clothes.
Clothes. So clothing is made out of material, but we could also say everything around us is made out of material. So material is an object which is made out of matter, and matter is anything that has weight. So everything in this room, everything we can see has weight. So what material is this table made out of, Natalie?
Wood.
Wood, exactly. So would wood be suited to make clothing out of?
No.
And why not?
It's too hard.
Hard. So hardness is another property. So, because if I tried to make a shirt out of wood, it would be too rigid, it wouldn't be very flexible. So based on those properties, it's not very suited for the use of clothing. So as you can see, the different properties that something has is going to change the way we use them. So, what's your understanding of the word property then?
Something that I own.
Something that you own, okay. So something that you possess. So we could say that objects, they possess certain qualities or properties. So like we said, the cup possesses the quality of softness, and the table possesses quality of hardness, and based on those properties, it changes the way in which we use them. That's very good, Natalie. So the properties that things are made out depends on the chemical and physical nature of the substances that are used to make them. And depending on whether something is successful for its use, depends on what it's made out of. So the substance that goes into something determines how we use them in our everyday life. And we're going to do a little test with that, Natalie. So I have a few materials. We don't need to use all of them today, but I have paper, I have glass, I have fabric, I have plastic, metal, and wood. And the four properties we're going to look at today are flexibility, transparency, strength, or absorbency. Now flexibility, that is the ability for something to be able to bend without breaking. So that's what flexibility means. So that's a property in itself. And transparency, that's the property of a material of light to be able to pass through it without scattering. So that's what transparency means. Strength is the ability for a force to be applied to something without failure, so without the thing actually breaking. So I can push against it, and depending on how hard I can push against it without it breaking, depends on how strong it is. And absorbency is the ability of an object to be able to absorb, or a material to be able to absorb water. So we're going to rate these things from 1 to 5. 5 being most flexible or most strong, and 1 being least flexible or least strong. So you can pick a couple of these things, and let's rank these things on the board, because later, based on the ranking that we give these things, we're going to determine what uses we can get out of them. So take a pick, Natalie. Oh, go for wood. So check its flexibility for starters. So flexibility, its ability to bend. How bendy would you say it is?
1.
1, I'd say that's pretty fair. So we're going to give wood 1. How about its transparency? So the ability for light to pass through it without scattering.
1.
1, does any light pass through it at all?
No.
No, so would you say 1 or maybe 0?
0.
0, so no light at all, we'll say 0. 1 is a little tiny bit of light. Like you said, 1 with flexibility, it bent a little bit. So no light at all, we'll say 0. How about strength?
5.
5, really? So how about if we compare, how about something like metal? We might give a full rating of strength. So try and push against that. Do you think you would be able to break it if you pushed really hard?
4.
4, I think 4 is pretty fair. And we're going to test its absorbency now, so I'm going to grab a container of water. And now absorbency is the ability for something to soak up liquid. And would you say that soaked up any liquid, Natalie?
No.
No, so we'll give that a 0. Very good. And let's choose something quite different now. So what's the next one you would like to choose?
Paper.
Paper, very good. So let's test its flexibility. So it's very bendy.
5.
Very bendy, it doesn't fail. We'll say 5. How about its transparency? So the ability for light to pass through without scattering.
1.
1, just a little bit of light, isn't it? And how about its strength, Natalie? So the ability for force to be applied without breaking. So if you really try to break that, how much, where would you rate, especially compared to wood?
2.
2, sure. And how about its absorbency? So the ability to soak up water. Oh, that got a little bit of water through it. How would you rate that?
4.
4, I think 4 is pretty fair. So as you can see here, based on the scores we've given for these properties, the different materials or different objects are going to be used for different things. So obviously if I want to use something that's very flexible for fabric or for printing paper or for art, I'm probably not going to use wood because wood isn't very flexible and it's not very mobile, it can't be moved. Whereas paper or fabric is very flexible as well. This is very good for clothing and very good for materials that I want to be bent and things like that. Whereas wood, something that's very strong and doesn't absorb any water, very good for furniture and very good for building things. Excellent. So as you can see, the properties all depends on the chemical structure that goes into the substances that make those properties. So based on these scores that we've given now, we're going to test these things for a range of different everyday uses, and we're going to do that with a later activity. Do you have any questions for now, Natalie?
No.
Excellent, you did so well. Give me 5. Bam, good job.